Right, again, welcome to the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. We are excited to be here today. This session is called From Theory to Practice, Best Practices in Public-Private Partnerships, Community Networking, and Community College Integration. We are here today thanks to Bank of America in partnership with IREC and NCWE, the National Council on Workforce Education. Can we move to the next slide? All right, welcome to the May session for the Alliance. Again, it's From Theory to Practice. In January, we shared a wealth of information with you from IRA to BIL and other funding to accelerate equitable diversity workforce development. In February, we detailed the key recommendations from our report, Cultivating a Diverse and Skilled Talent Pipeline. In March, we expanded those key recommendations one step further, providing a panel of fantastic experts in our industry, sharing best practices and examples on how to put some of those key recommendations into action. We're excited to continue with this concept, bringing you prescriptive, actionable steps to create an equitable and diverse workforce in the clean energy sector. Time is of the essence, and it's imperative that we take advantage of all the funding and resources available to advance our workforce. And it's my pleasure to bring to you today a great panel of experts who are going to help us do just that. So I'd like to review our agenda quickly today. We are going to cover some Alliance news and updates. We're going to give you a quick resource update on an apprenticeship toolkit that was just launched. I'll introduce our panelists. We've got 3 great presentations today. We will have time for Q&A after each presentation, but there will also be Q&A at the end, and then we will be wrapping up with a special announcement for our LinkedIn group. Next slide. So we have, thanks to our partnership with Bank of America, we are excited to continue to build on the momentum that we have with the Alliance. We're committed to working towards a resilient and equitable clean energy economy shaped by cross-sector efforts to improve clean energy education and training and job placement outcome. Efforts moving forward will continue to ensure that the expanding clean energy job opportunities are inclusive, equitable, and diverse, and representing our underserved communities. A diverse workforce is critical to building an equitable clean energy future. Future sessions for the Alliance are going to include discussions on policy, how to impact change in your communities, apprenticeships, working with unions, strengthening partnerships and networks, accessing research-aligned frameworks that can expand widespread engagement around clean energy priorities. I am at the Department of Labor conference here today, and I can tell you that we have a lot of opportunities and funding coming down the pike soon. So we're excited to bring that to you and help all of you facilitate those opportunities. We're also excited to announce that we have a live LinkedIn group for Alliance members. So please make sure you complete the opt-in form that will be in the chat today. We are thrilled to provide an interactive interface where members can share their resources, connect with each other, share best practices and opportunities in real time. So again, please submit that opt-in form and we'll continue to share up-to-date information with you via LinkedIn and emails and webinars. As we prepare for our upcoming sessions, we're also going to ask you today to respond to some poll questions. We have some great sessions on the horizon. In addition to our traditional webinar series, we're now going to be hosting an interactive workshop series. So stay tuned for that and some exciting updates to come. To ensure the best technical support, please, again, we'll respond to the polls. We'll also have Q&A in today's session, and we'll ask you to drop questions in the Q&A that'll be available to you. I would also now like to pass it to Dr. Deb Rowe, who's going to be providing us with a brief update about regulations.
Great. And if you want to stop sharing your screen, then I can share mine. And hi, everybody. So glad that you're here again today. I know your time is really precious, and so we're working really hard to give you really useful, practical, valuable information. and to set it up so you can interact with each other. How exciting is it that that LinkedIn is going to be available now? So there's a coalition that I've worked with that I wanted to bring to you as an opportunity. It's called Solutions for Pollution. Now, we all know, if we've been paying attention to the science of climate change, that we need to reduce greenhouse gases by 50% by 2030 to take our last shot at stabilizing the climate, or at least be able to prevent the worst impacts of climate change. The IRA is supposed to get us about 80% towards that goal, if it doesn't disappear in this debt thing that we're doing and what's going on with the House. But it is supposed to do that if it stays intact. But the last 10% of this 50% reduction, which is really crucial, the last 20% of the efforts we need to make, is a set of 20 regulations. These regulations come out of federal agencies, and they do things like limit carbon, like limit mercury. So they make things healthier for us. It's like truck emissions rules and cars, so that we can change the norms in our society with already cost-effective technology and get to the sustainable future that we want. And we know a lot of you are involved in those issues on the day-to-day, and we wanted you to be able to weigh in on these regulations getting passed and being strong. So this is a coalition. It's really nice because they give you the information, they've done the research, they give you the talking points. It helps you to be able to reach out to the legislators, the elected officials, others who need to really understand how important these regulations are, and to push for them to get done, or to just go directly to the agency, which has public comment periods. Your voices are considered grass top voices. In other words, you're not grassroots. You're more valuable in the public comment because you have background expertise. So, and I don't mean you have to have expertise about the regulation, but you have expertise about the clean energy options. These upcoming regulations, they not only protect public health, but they're going to accelerate the transition we want to clean energy. And then they create economic opportunity for the communities. So there's a coalition of 240 organizations. It costs nothing to join. And all you have to do is say, I'll do something for one of the 20 regulations. I can't imagine that those of you on the event today don't want to weigh in on how we need to reduce carbon emissions. So that's one of the rules. It's actually just been announced, and public comment is opening up now. So please, you could pick any of those things. You could submit comments during the public comment period, could testify. I've done that. It's really fun, and it can have a big impact. During virtual public hearings, and the coalition gives you talking points if you aren't up to date on them, gives you fact sheets, shows your support. You can share the opportunities with others. That can be your one commitment, or you can do organizational sign-on letters that, once again, they organize for you, so it makes it really easy. So it's called Solutions for Pollution. These 20 regulations, we've already had 3 of them, so there's going to be 17 more, and the link is in the chat. So I strongly encourage you to go take a look and to join, because it just makes the job easier for you, right? We all wish we had big governmental relations departments, right? So that we could align the regulations that we need with what, with what's happening, but we don't. So I brought this to you, so it'll make it easier. And thanks, back to you.
Thanks so much, Deb. That's important information, and that's the kind of stuff we want to also bring to you all more regularly, especially through this LinkedIn page. So we're excited for that. We also want to bring to you one more update before we get to our panelists of experts. On April 26, IREC released the Registered Apprenticeship Toolkit for Clean Energy Employers. Registered apprenticeship programs are a key tool for developing, scaling, and sustaining a diverse pipeline of trained talent. So this toolkit is intended to provide employers and other stakeholders with the resources and background information that they need, and supplemental resources to implement registered apprenticeship programs and develop clean energy workforce. And again, I'm at the DOL conference today, and I can tell you it is a hot topic. Everyone is talking about how to get pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs stood up in their community. So we thought this toolkit would be a great resource for you, and we will be doing future sessions on apprenticeship in your community. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. I think we jumped right in and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Cynthia Finley. I'm the Vice President of Workforce with IREC. I am joined today by my colleague, Dr. Janelle Hills, the Director of Workforce Programs. And of course, we just heard from Dr. Deborah Rowe, who is representing NCWE here today. We're also joined by our panelist, Dr. Keith Harkins. He's the Vice President of Academic and Workforce Programs at Southside Virginia Community College. We have David Peterson, the Executive Director at SHINE, which is another really long acronym. Solar Hands-On Instructional Network of Excellence is what SHINE stands for. We have Rich Schuyler, the Chief Executive Officer of Network to Work, but he also is at a community college here in Virginia. And we have Dr. Darlene Miller, the Executive Director for NCWE, the National Council for Workforce Education. Next slide. So I'd like to introduce our first presentation. Dr. Keith Harkins currently serves as the Vice President of Academic and Workforce Programs at Southside Community College, and he's implemented and designed cutting-edge training programs for renowned organizations. His expertise collaborating with business and industry leaders has resulted in the creation of successful academic programs, customized short-term courses that meet the evolving needs of the regional workforce in the energy sector. He also currently serves on the Commonwealth Regional Commission, Region 8 Workforce Investment Board, and is a founding board member of SHINE. He will be great to ask questions on how to work with your investment boards and those workforce organizations. He is joined by David Peterson, the Executive Director of SHINE, the Solar Hands-On Instructional Network for Excellence, whose mission is to build innovative solar career pathways and help develop a qualified, diverse, equitable, and inclusive solar workforce. I'd like to hand it over to them for their presentation.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Cindy, for having us. I'm Keith Harkins. And as Cindy stated, I am the Vice President of Academic and Workforce Programs at Southside Virginia Community College. This solar training program that we worked with, we developed through working with originally 2 solar companies. I'm trying to decide whether or not to name them, on rather large solar companies on the East Coast. They came to our college and asked us to replicate another program that we had that's been very successful, which is a power line worker training program. And one of the reasons they liked that program was because of how we worked with industry. And our 2 main partners in that program were Dominion Energy and the Virginia, Maryland, Delaware Association of Electric Cooperatives. And we worked closely with that group. And one of the things that they wanted was a workforce training program. They did not want a program that was based on the academic semester. And so what we ended up with was the very first program in Virginia, period, but also the first program on the East Coast that really was not based on the academic schedule. It was an intensive program here at our Occupational Technical Center, which is located in Blackstone, Virginia, right off the edge of Fort Pickett, if you're familiar. And the program goes 12 weeks, and within that program, they get CDL. But as we worked with our solar partners, one of the important pieces that they wanted was also a focus on workforce training and a cooperation with all of the various industry partners. Go ahead, David. And you can just keep going, David, through the slides if you want to. And one of the things that you realize when you're working on these programs is how flexible you have to be, right? As you get more companies involved, and get their input on what's missing on the curriculum, what needs to be added. You have to be sensitive to that, and I think one of the things that that our partners in the renewable energy space realized was our experience with that became very helpful. We really had a difficult time paring things down, right? One of the things that you get is, hey, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this. Next thing you know, the program is 6, 7, 8 weeks long, and that's not going to work, right? So when we were working with our industry partners, it became really clear that everyone had to be clear on the expectations and be clear on how we were going to move forward in terms of input. And I can tell you that we've been very pleased with how this has moved ahead. And really, as a result of that original discussion, result of a partnership with the Virginia Community College Systems Office, the organization Shine really was created from those early discussions, and partially because we realized there needed to be a coordinated effort in making this this training program viable and taking it to scale. And with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate that. And again, thanks, Cindy and crew, for the opportunity to speak with you today and to share this time. My name is David Peterson. As Cindy said, I'm the Executive Director of the Solar Hands-On Instructional Network of Excellence, or SHINE. And yes, you do wish you were a fly on the wall when we were working that acronym out. It took a bit. So at the beginning, Keith and I got into our mystery machine. This is actually his driveway. It's his van, and we started our trip in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Keith's from there, and we felt like it was a decent place to sort of set the table today. It's nice to be able to communicate with folks that have a fair amount of foundational knowledge and understanding of where we are in the industry, and as we reach toward the goal of reducing our carbon emissions so that we can keep the temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we went to Pittsburgh, and we noticed that it's a decent analogy, decent metaphor for where we are today. If you've ever been, there's 3 rivers, the Monongahela and the Allegheny merged to form the Ohio. And for us, the Monongahela is the social case for renewables, which we all know. You say the word green, you know it. And the Allegheny is the economic case, which up until very recently wasn't a significant factor in the renewable energy narrative. But now that the levelized cost of energy in many places has dropped through renewable generation resources, it's become a significant contributor to that narrative. So when you combine them, the Ohio River is cheesecake is healthy, and it makes me pretty, and that's really rare. I think we all appreciate the value of the moment that we're in and the opportunities, like Cindy alluded to a bit earlier, that this represents. So a little bit more level setting. You've probably seen this graphic. I won't delve too deeply into it. Our slide presentation will be shared out among the group. This graphic from SIA basically says we need a lot of people, and we need them now. We also, through SHINE, do some project pipeline analysis in the state of Virginia. And our analytics tell us that through 2028, we're looking at 31,000 direct project hires in the state of Virginia alone for 27.5 gigawatts of output that's in the queue, in the pipeline. We aggregate these resources through information available publicly and through private conversations and interaction with our industry partners that I'll get to a little bit later. Suffice to say, there is a ton of need and there's a ton of opportunity. So what we did at the beginning was try to determine how best to contribute to the solution to this problem, because we know, as you might have heard Shale Khan say, of the 7 horsemen of the renewable energy apocalypse, 2 have the most existential impact, and that is permitting and regulation and workforce. So how we handle these, because of the more societal and cultural implications that they both represent, is going to be something that I think defines our ability to tackle the challenges ahead of us. What we landed on was what I like to call an aligned intermediary model, where we sit between academia and industry in an effort to help bring the two forces together and create transformational change. This is a look at some of our academic partners that we align with, so that we can again achieve that kind of alignment. You'll see some probably recognizable logos on here, and Southside Virginia Community College, where Keith is the hub of that wheel. It's been a great relationship, and I think it was a really, really powerful way to look at leveraging the community college system for all that they do and all that they possess, so that an initiative such as ours doesn't have to reinvent the wheel or do a lot of the stuff the community college network in Virginia is already built to do. On the other side of the equation, after the community college and Shine have worked to prepare folks to get into the industry, we have leveraged relationships with a pretty diverse group of industry partners, and these are really the royal jelly, or the secret sauce. It's really important that we have folks in the industry that are the ones actually doing the hiring, the ones actually responsible for doing the work of this transition, aligned with our goals and objectives, so that we can prepare them in a manner that gives our industry partners the opportunities to get qualified folks that they don't have to hire more than once for a job, and provide folks that are local to the communities that this work is being done in. So as we move forward, sorry, I think I somehow ended up, I guess I got to go backwards a little bit, or forward. Okay, somehow my forwarding is not doing what I would hope it would be doing. All right, you're seeing this all in reverse, so you pretty much know everything so far. This is the way the program is designed. Again, I won't get too deeply into this, but the Shine and the program was designed as throughput, in an input, throughput, output, and outcome model, taking our academic partnerships that we leverage, helping build and design a curriculum and deliver it through the community college and academic partners that we have, using our industry partnership to feed the personnel and workforce supply lines through developers, EPCs, placement agencies, and apprenticeship programs that Cindy alluded to earlier as well. And ultimately to the outcomes. One of the things about workforce, and especially in the renewable energy and solar space, is what happens after the job is finished. It's construction oriented, it's period-based work, it's project oriented. So it's one of our major goals that these become career launching opportunities and not simply jobs. And that's very, very important to us. So the program itself is a first of its kind, public-private partnership, again, that leverages the stakeholders that I mentioned earlier on the academic side, as well as the industry side, to help really streamline the curriculum and facilitate a straight to work type initiative, because a lot of the folks, as we know, at this 47-2231 SOC code, which is the solar PV installation technician, that are 101 program trains for are not always able to take the time or spend the money to get themselves an advanced education. So it's important to them and to us that we be able to equip them for the kind of work that this is relatively quickly. An overview of the certification. The Shine certification is a solar PV installation training credential. It's also got solar focused construction skills, what's very important to us, a hands-on field simulation. With it is OSHA 10 certification as well, because safety, as we've seen across the landscape with our EPC and developer and contractor off-takers, is really important. And also we facilitate NCWE core certification. So again, those pathways, those career vectors can be accomplished. So our graduates, the benefits of the program to them as we've designed it is that it's affordable, and through the community college system. And in Virginia, there's a funding mechanism called Fast Forward and G3, which some of you might be familiar with, that make it such that we can most often provide this training free to the student. It's a fast track to marketable skills. Again, as Keith mentioned, we've been able to streamline the curriculum and the training so that it can be done very, very quickly. Our project tracking also allows us to be a little bit more tactical and strategic about the way we plan and direct the curriculum, so that the folks that are coming into the program know that they have jobs on the other side, because we have timed and aligned the training to work with the hiring schedules of the industry off-takers with which we partner. The advancement opportunities that come from being pre-screened, pre-trained, and essentially pre-onboarded are many. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there are really two cells of the spreadsheet that we benefit for our industry partners. One is bottom line labor cost, because you don't have to bring in travelers, and you're able to provide jobs for members of the communities where this work is being done, which obviously has benefits in the permitting side as well that I probably don't need to mention. But those folks have jobs waiting for them on the other side. And the other cell in the spreadsheet that we really benefit is churn. Training folks adequately for a job that they know they want because they have experience already doing it means that they don't stick around for just the first paycheck. Here's a picture of our fabulous fixed lab, as Keith mentioned, in Blackstone, Virginia. Here's one of our earlier cohorts in the mobile lab. This was in Warsaw, Virginia, up in the in the northern neck of Virginia. Here's an aerial view of our training apparatus as it's being assembled. Here's an example of our certificate of completion and a certification of it for a graduate. Here's another look at our pipeline analysis. I won't get too deeply into this. This is available on our website and for all of our industry partners and stakeholders. We do a pretty exhaustive analytics dig into the project pipeline in Virginia. Here's a new look at one of our county-wide maps that you can hover over the state and drill down into county by county information and metrics. Again, it helps us to predict where the jobs are going to be when they're coming online and how many folks will benefit from them. We subdivide the state by county, by community college service area, and soon by legislative district, so we can speak to the needs and the value of this training as it relates to stakeholders from the different disciplines across Virginia. Here's a quick look at our the wage benefit of our program over 10 years. If we graduate 20 people per week across the state over the course of the next 10 years, that's $1.6 billion that we will have contributed to workforce and communities across Virginia, that right now 80% of is being paid to folks that are from out of state. So this has a huge impact when you're talking about permitting and making an impact felt at the local level. With that, I will turn it back over to Cindy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give you a look at what Shine is and how we were built. And I'm happy to talk further about it at any point.
Thanks so much. I do believe we are going to take a second here to answer the questions that have popped up. I think there are a couple in the chat, as well as there appear to be some in Q&A.
Remember, you said there was no math.
No math. I did promise you no math. I can't promise that the folks attending did not give you math questions. We have a question for Q&A. How did you recruit students, and what were the demographics in terms of gender, race, and age?
I'll tackle that one, Keith, if that's all right. Yeah, the recruitment question is really, really interesting. And I think we have to look at it a little bit bipartite. There's a sort of a pre-pandemic and a post-pandemic reality that goes along with this. And the outreach and recruitment efforts are reflective, I think, of a post-pandemic footing. As we've seen, enrollment across the board, across the country, is down in many higher educational institutions. So we've had to get creative about how we reach out to people and how we activate them toward these jobs. And one of the things that I think Keith and Southside and the VCCS and our other stakeholders have done is an excellent job in helping us to uncover innovative and creative pathways toward that type of outreach and those enrollment initiatives. Right now, we've got a pilot program with the Virginia Department of Corrections that is looking like it's going to be a really valuable pipeline for us, as well as the Department of Social Services, and which I think rolls into the demographics question. And we list them and highlight them on our website as well. Predominantly at or below the federal poverty level for a lot of these entry-level jobs, predominantly non-white, predominantly high school educated in the 18 to 26 age range, mostly male. But as you know, there are a lot of DE&I initiatives and a lot of funding opportunities for outreach into communities that really do benefit from this type of training and these opportunities.
Do you have any tricks to finding, recruiting, and retaining students?
It's interesting being down with the folks at the CEWD in Louisiana. There's a vibrant exchange of ideas and imaginative approaches to that type of enrollment and retention outreach. One gentleman talked about how he spent a lot of time at the barbershop in one of the towns that he goes to, and was looking for recruits within. And I think we're facing a reality that is a little more retail in its nature, that we're going to have to roll our sleeves up and get out and talk to people and reach out to them with sincere and authentic effort, so that they can see the real value of these opportunities. A lot of the communities that this work is being done in and is benefiting don't always see the opportunities that are here, and sometimes need a little bit more help to see them for what they accurately and truly are at this point. So I think we're only bound by the limits of our imagination when it comes to that.
This is a great opportunity to work with your partners, right? Their community partners. We, particularly with this program, WIOA has been very influential. DARS, David mentioned our partnership with the Department of Corrections for justice impacted individuals. These are all great ways to start relationships or build upon relationships with those groups. And they've been very helpful, particularly with this program, but other programs as well, in helping us recruit for the program.
Yeah, and I might add real quick that also speaks, I think, to a broader discussion that I think the industry at large could have and should be having, and I know is in many places, about the value of promotion and and branding and publicity and the PR efforts that go along with the stories that are being told and that need to be told. And one of the things I like to say is we need our version of a Got Milk campaign. And I think this is the kind of organization and the kind of gathering and brain power that could really help propel a unified voice forward in the industry.
That's great. That's one of the items that we're going to want to focus on next year, actually, in the Alliance, is recruitment. So I'm glad you all brought it up. Collect your best ideas, because it's all hands on deck here, and we will come back to that topic in a future event. Mm-hmm.
There is a question about unions, and do you work with them?
Short answer is yes. It's interesting because you've touched on apprenticeship and how it's becoming and will continue to be as long as like was spoken, as long as the IRA remains the IRA, apprenticeship in its current forms will become a more and more significant player in this space. Hence, union involvement and participation is also on the rise, and we certainly work with unions and are happy to work with both union and non-union organizations to help train their folks.
There's a question here. Did you say whether the students are people who have already been hired by solar contractors and are receiving OTJ training, or do they go through the training and then need to find employers? And a follow-up is, does Shine help connect graduates with contractors?
That's a great question. And yeah, I'm glad to have an opportunity to address it more specifically. We are not an onboarding organization, so this is not post-hire. It's pre-hire for a number of reasons. One of the things that our industry off-takers appreciate about our efforts is it does help our prospective students understand what a day in the life is and get a true feeling for the job and the profession before entering. Our relationships with our industry off-takers are such that we sit in an interesting space and sort of straddle both lines. We are sort of a pre-onboarding in a way that an apprenticeship would exist in other spaces. So we don't, they aren't hired prior to us receiving them, but the opportunities and the chances for them being hired upon completion of the course, and should they so desire, are just about 100%. It's also worth mentioning that, a lot of times these are barrier candidates, and we're seeing a lot of the issues that come from that on the ground, day to day. One of the things that we try to really emphasize going in is that you have to be able to pass a drug test to get hired. And that becomes part of, again, that sort of vetting, that self-vetting that a lot of our students do prior to deciding whether they want to pursue a career in this field.
Well, thank you. We did not get to all of the questions. I promised all of you that they will be answered. If you could drop your questions in the Q&A that you'll see, I will try to get to them. We will have Q&A at the end as well. So if we didn't get to them, I can read some of them at that time too, but they will all be answered. We will also grab them out of the chat as well, but we're going to move on. Thank you, Dave and Keith, for that. It generated quite a lot of interest, so we'll be circling back to answer those questions. We're going to move to our next presenter. I would like to introduce to you Rich Schuyler. He is with Piedmont Virginia Community College in Virginia, and they selected Rich to lead a newly created division that I'm not sure I've heard of at other community colleges, but it's community self-sufficiency programs, where he is the dean, and he also directs network to work at PVCC. It's all yours, Rich.
Thank you so much. Thank goodness for Photoshop. Let me just get to my slides and we'll get rolling here. There we go. So thank you all very much for having me. And I'm going to launch into a discussion that may answer some of the questions that you were posing to David and Keith. We focus on a very intentional approach for recruiting the equitable clean energy workforce that you all are really desperate to create. And I will walk you through the framework that we use to do that. And it is based on, intention. And I looked at the incredible resources that IREC and the Clean Energy Alliance has up on their website, and you all have discussed that there is an incredible opportunity here, significant workforce expansion, as was just discussed, but that expansion will not happen by chance. It requires a level of intention that goes beyond what we have done historically to attract job seekers and students to the community college. It will require comprehensive planning and coordination according to the work that you all have published. And this is particularly true if we want to ensure that this job growth is inclusive and translates to the communities that need them most. You all have also said that the alliance that you all have come together to form is going to develop processes that make it easier for community organizations to connect learners and workers to clean energy jobs, for employers to find the employees they need. And that has come up, of course, again, in the Q&A that we've already had today. And the training providers to support effective learning and career guidance, again, such as what Shine and Southside Community College are providing. So in one of your summits, you all discussed the top barriers encountered when placing individuals in clean energy careers. I've highlighted a few here. Difficulty connecting people to opportunities, lack of awareness of the clean energy careers that exist, the training that is needed, transportation that may be required to get to the job site and do the work that is essential. These are the resources that community-based organizations need in order to support clean energy learners and workers. Again, the tools that connect employers to job seekers, better awareness of clean energy careers, connections to employers and other stakeholders, connections to K through 12 stakeholders. These are all the challenges that lay in front of us that you all have identified that will allow us to take advantage of this incredible employment opportunity that we are on the verge of having. But we really need to figure out, how do we go and expand that workforce in a way that goes beyond the traditional wait for people to show up at the community college or some other training provider and go get the training. And then, in the words of former Secretary of Labor Tom Perez, we have built a workforce system that has historically been, could be summarized as train and pray. Train people and give them credentials and pray that they can find some employer that will hire them once they've been credentialed. We at Network to Work have developed a 3-step Network to Work framework that tries to go beyond that traditional train and pray approach, that traditional wait for people to show up before we offer them services. We've developed a framework that goes beyond that and really does, where we really do roll up our sleeves and find the people who would be a great match for employment. So the first step of the 3-step Network to Work framework is, as you all might guess, talking to employers. So it is employers who drive the employment and workforce train. So we talk to employers in our region. We are place-based and job-driven. We talk to the employers who have the decent family-sustaining wage jobs and careers that are just waiting for the next great job seeker to come grab them. So it all starts with employers. We have built a technology platform that aligns the 3 networks that I'm going to discuss in Network to Work, the first being the employer network. So we talk to employers, we collect information from them that is in a form that regular people can understand. So we try to strip our job descriptions of gauzy language that might come from the HR department and really get employers to tell us exactly what are you looking for. We often include a little video in our job tickets that show a day in the life of this job, but we talk to those employers, we find out in somewhat granular detail in language that regular people can understand, what does this job require, so that we can then go find the next great job seeker. The next step in the 3-step network to work framework is identifying low wealth families or folks who have been left behind in our economy. And just like David mentioned, the secret sauce for them, the secret sauce for us is this job seeker network. And this is where we roll up our sleeves and go find job seekers. This is built off of our experience that you can't connect with disconnected job seekers by putting up a flyer. People who've been left behind in our economy, who've been traditionally overlooked, and not just them, but their parents before them and their grandparents before them, they have been disconnected from the very institutions that are set up to assist them. And they are not going to naturally turn back to institutions for help when help is needed. So putting up a flyer, posting jobs with the idea that build it and they will come is not an effective way of finding people who are disconnected or distrustful of the very institutions that are there to help them. To pull a page from our own community college playbook, the way that we had before Network to Work and community self-sufficiency programs came to Piedmont, Virginia Community College, the way that we had recruited students for these short-term, non-credit, industry-recognized credentials was by mailing course catalogs into low wealth communities, into public housing or publicly supported neighborhoods. We would mail in a catalog with the expectation that low wage worker, perhaps a single parent, that single parent would put the kids quietly at the dining room table to work quietly on their homework while she sits down on the couch, props her feet up on the coffee table, picks up that course catalog that she got in the mail, opens it up, finds on page 17 phlebotomy technician training, and says to herself, you know what? I think I'll become a phlebotomist, whatever that is. Oh, and look, it's only $2,300. That is not the way people change their lives. And in fact, research that was produced by the US Department of Health and Human Services back when we began thinking about the Network to Work model had this finding, that contacting friends and relatives is the most fruitful job search technique for both employed and unemployed job seekers. And you may know that from your own life and your own career, that you talked to somebody who knew somebody who had somebody who was hiring, and through that word of mouth, you were able to identify an opportunity and get employed by it. Well, this study said that is the most fruitful method for job search, but the study went on to say, even if that's true, even if mobilizing a social network is the most fruitful method, we don't really know how to operationalize this strategy. Well, at Network to Work, we figured out how to operationalize this strategy, and it is rolling up our sleeves and getting into communities and finding out the people who've been left behind and connecting them to our employer network. We call this part of our framework the Job Seeker Network. And what that is we identify connectors in community who are the people who are on the front lines with people who struggle. Perhaps because they live in those neighborhoods. One of the very first connectors we recruited into Network to Work was a woman named Myrtle Harkins here in Charlottesville, Virginia. She lived for 26 years in publicly supported housing. She became a teacher's assistant at the local elementary school, and everybody in her community used to come to Myrtle for help, because Myrtle was a person who was known to be able to get things done with her ear to the ground, and she would be able to connect people to information based on what she was hearing on the ground. What we've decided to do and what we have done is identify the Myrtle Harkins of the world, the connectors. They may be, as I mentioned, just people who, because of their personality, they accrue to themselves an enormous amount of social capital. They're just the go-to people in communities and neighborhoods. But it also might be the workers who, through their jobs, put them on the front lines with people who struggle. And David and Keith gave us good examples of who that might be. Those are folks who are working in the Department of Corrections to try to make sure that people who are sent back home have job opportunities ready for them when they return. That could be guidance counselors at the local high school who know which kids are going off to community college or a four-year college and which kids are not. It could be people who work for the Department of Social Services who are supporting those needy families who need temporary assistance, but ultimately want to get them into jobs. All of those folks are connectors. They're in every single community across the nation. They exist already. You just need to identify them and feed them job information. And when we do that, we feed them job information so that they no longer have to just have their ear to the ground about what employers might be hiring somebody who has a criminal background. They now have real-time job information in their hands so that they can think, who do I know that would be good at that? And when they think about that person, they can then reach out and grab them and become our recruiters. So we feed them job information. They stop and think, who do I know that would be good at that? They reach out and grab that person and say, hey, did you know that there's this incredible clean energy job? There's training at Piedmont Virginia Community College or Southside Community College. I think you'd be great for that because I know that you care about the climate and you're always tinkering in your backyard with something. You would be great as a solar installer. So we rely on these connectors and we leverage them up to recruit job seekers intentionally for jobs that have been posted on our platform, on our curated jobs list. And this is what that looks like. So that neighborhood-based connector on their smartphone has a listing of the jobs that we have available. And just to tug on the healthcare profession for a moment, they may see, I have this person 2 doors down who took advantage of her great aunt when she was sick. Look, here's a job at Sentara Martha Jefferson, one of the great hospitals in our region, who is looking for a nursing care partner. The beginning wage is, $33,000 a year. I know somebody who'd be great for that. They can click on that job and the job is then opened up to them where they can get a little explanation about what the job is, what the wages are. As I mentioned, there's often a little video about what that job entails so that somebody can picture themselves in that job. There are great videos about solar installers. We also have character limited requirements, responsibilities, and skills that we curate to make sure that they are in language that people can understand so that that connector can make a good match between the people they know and the employer who has the next great job that's available for them. So this information is put in the hands of those connectors so they can reach out and grab and recruit the job seeker who wants that job. There was a question in the Q&A earlier about demographics. In the Charlottesville region, we have so far enrolled in Network to Work 1,557 job seekers. As you can see from the big circle in the middle, 62% of our job seekers are African-American, 20% are white, the rest are other people of color. You can see on the lower left that 39% are criminal justice involved, 43% are single parents. We're about equally split between men and women. And like was mentioned with the folks who are doing the Shine work, most of them have high school diploma as their highest educational attainment. So we are reaching the people who have been historically left behind in our economy. And our very first outreach to them is about the job. So we are job driven because that's what job seekers are interested in. They want to know what's at the end of this process for me. And for them, that is the job that pays a decent wage that allows them to support their families. The final step of the 3-step Network to Work framework is to remove all obstacles, to support the whole person. And what do we mean by that? Well, if you're going to move somebody from where they are in a low-paying job or even no job, if we're going to move them from where they are to income independence, they need everything along this pathway. We focus a lot, appropriately so, on education and skills. If they want to become income independent, they have to have the skills that make them valuable in the marketplace. And that's where Shine and other training partners come in handy. They give them the skills that make them more valuable in the marketplace. So they're no longer just worth the minimum wage that exists in your state. They're worth much more. But while education and skills is necessary, it is often not sufficient. If you have education and skills, but you have no transportation, you are not going to get yourself to that job site for the solar installation. If you do not have healthcare to take care of your bad knee, that's going to keep you from doing the work that you need to do on the ground as a solar installer, you're not going to be a great employee for that employer. So at Network to Work, we identify all of the needs that a job seeker has, because it is the entire job seeker that shows up for work, not just the well-trained, shine-trained solar installer, but the shine-trained solar installer who needs a car that works, who needs childcare for someone to watch their kids while they're at work, who needs a stable place to live. And so we wrap services around people so they have everything they need in order to be a quality employee. And the way we do that, again, through this technology platform that we built, is we ask questions of that job seeker to get to know them better. So where do you live? What is your age? Why are you interested in the job that you've chosen? So that we can make sure that this is truly a job of interest. It is like TurboTax in that it is a dynamic survey. So based on answers to your questions, other questions open up. So here, I'm a single mom. I've got 2 kids at home. Neither one of them are under the age of 6, et cetera, et cetera. So we go through a series of questions that both surface the needs that someone might have, but it also embeds within it the eligibility criteria of local providers so that we can match that job seeker to the service provider in the region that can provide them what they need in order to get the job that they've chosen. So once they have answered the questions on the platform, they are given a pathway that lays out what they need to get in order to get that job. And included along that pathway, as you see here, is often skills training. So we will tell them, here's how you connect with the skills training that is necessary. But as you can see on the bottom of the screen, we also might connect you to a loaner vehicle. One of the services that we have stood up here in the Charlottesville region is a loaner vehicle program where we lend vehicles to people for up to 6 months so they can get through training in the first couple of months of work. Once they've got that paycheck established, they return the car to the loaner fleet. They buy their own car with the new money that they're making, and the next family gets to use that loaner car to get them during the period that they do not have transportation. The theory there is that while you may be poor today, you're not going to be poor once we're done with you. So all you need literally is to get from here to there. And so we wrap all of these services around people through what we call our provider network so that they have everything they need in order to be a quality employee. So we launched in Charlottesville, Virginia, just to give you a little bit of background about where we are and where we're headed. We launched with this network to work framework in Charlottesville. The local Chamber of Commerce heard about the idea and said, can you get that launched here in our region? The Chamber of Commerce had 2 thoughts in mind when they asked us to kick off this program. One was, it's a great benefit to our members who are desperate for workers. So they thought of it as a member benefit for their employers to help them find job seekers. But they also recognized that the more job seekers there were in the community making more money, the more business there would be for local businesses. So more cars being sold, better housing being offered, more goods being purchased. And so they recognize that whether you're focused on the employer need or the job seeker need, there is an enormous economic benefit for connecting people who've been left behind in our economy with jobs that pay them a decent wage and lead to family sustaining careers. So we launched in 2014 in Charlottesville, Virginia. We expanded to Albemarle County, again, through the local Chamber of Commerce. We then were approached by the Piedmont Virginia Community College. The president of the community college sat down with me as I made a presentation to the chamber board in 2015 and said, what you're doing is what we should have been doing at the community college for the last 40 years. Your intentional approach of recruiting the left behind people, surrounding with all the services they need, is exactly what a community college should do for its citizens, to be the community's college. So we were expanded to the entire region served by Piedmont Virginia Community College in 2016 and 2020. Seeing the success that we had in that region, the governor of Virginia then said, can we take network to work idea and use it in other places in the Commonwealth? So we were funded to pilot this in other places in the Commonwealth and expanded through multiple regions, both through that grant and through a state appropriation in Virginia that is going to allow us to cover this central belt of Virginia. And good news for Southside Community College, if they're interested, is legislation that recently passed the General Assembly with overwhelming bipartisan support now will nest network to work within a new Department of Workforce Development and Advancement that the governor has gotten passed. So we will be available to communities throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia to bring this 3-step framework to communities that would like us to work with them to support job seekers trying to get jobs with employers in that region. Beyond that, in 2021, we established a Network to Work USA nonprofit to take this idea to other parts of the nation. If it works in Charlottesville, if it works in Richmond, if it can work in Harrisonburg and Blackstone, perhaps it can work in other parts of the nation. And as we have presented to folks just like you across the country, we've presented a couple times at the great NCWE conferences. We've had communities come up to us from all over the country to say, when are you coming to our community? We could really use this framework to help us organize ourselves to get this job done that we know needs to be done, that has the partners, but we just don't quite have the framework to put it all together. Can you come and help us put it all together? And one thing that I'll note about that, you see the star down Broward County, Florida, incredible operation down there. In Broward County, the community college has taken on the role of really focusing on ending poverty as one of their missions. And I talked to them during the NCWE conference to ask them, how do you recruit your job seekers? Just like the question you're asking today. And they said, well, we're working with community-based organizations. And I said, oh, like what? And they said, well, Big Brothers Big Sisters is one of the community-based community organizations we're working with. And I said, so that organization sends you job seekers? And then she paused for a minute and smiled and said, well, it's not so much Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's actually a woman who works there who goes by Big Mama. And Big Mama knows everybody. And that is the whole idea of our recruitment model. How do we find the big mamas who live and work in community and feed them job information so they can connect job seekers to job opportunities and all of the training and supports they need to get and keep those jobs. So that is the Network to Work framework and how it works. And I'm going to escape that and stop my share, and I am open for questions.
Thanks. We are gonna, I think Darlene wanted to jump in here and share her screen, so I was gonna let her do that if I'm not mistaken.
No, at the end of my presentation.
Oh, at the end of yours? Okay, well, because we're at the top of the hour, we got some questions, Ridge, but we're gonna hold them until the end. We're gonna let Darlene share her screen. And actually, Janelle's gonna share her screen for Darlene's presentation. And I'd like to introduce to you all Darlene Miller. She is with NCWE, the National Council for Workforce Education, and has a rich and extensive history working with community colleges. So we're really fortunate to have her with us here today.
Thanks. Can you go to the next slide? And like Rich said, thank goodness for Photoshop, and for me, it's thank goodness for old photos. Okay, go to the next slide. And there we go. So thanks everyone for being here and for inviting us. And I want to talk a little bit about a project that we've been working on, funded by the Lumina Foundation, called the National Green Jobs Advisory Council. Go ahead, please. So just a little bit about NCWE. We are a nonprofit organization. We work with community colleges all across the United States. We are about building inclusive networks of workforce professionals and that champion justice, innovation, and economic opportunity. Really, we do a lot of work with community colleges, helping them improve their programs and their training, and make their programs and their opportunities available to all members of their community. Go ahead. We also host the Seed site, which is a website that currently has about 900 materials on it. It's a national resource. It's free. It aims to advance sustainability and clean technology programs at community colleges by sharing them with all sorts of resources and opportunities, not just in resources, but also in curriculum, as well as presentations like the one today. So go ahead. So we worked on a number of previous projects in the past, looking at green jobs in the future. And we learned, we asked a lot of folks about their experience in the past building programs. You know, many of you have talked about frustration with working with your local community colleges. Others have talked about colleges had programs and they were gone. And what we learned from so many folks that during the Obama administration, when there was a big push around green jobs, that many of the programs were canceled because of low enrollment or because of cost, that employment projections didn't materialize, and that colleges were reticent to develop new programs, even with these new bills that are in place and this new push towards clean energy and jobs. We've also been working with the Illinois Green Economy Network over the last 3 or 4 years, and I did a research study for them looking at the programs that they had in place and then no longer had in place. And what I heard from faculty and deans and vice presidents was, we want to be able to infuse green training into our currently existing skilled crafts or trades programs, or as like Gerard, who is our project director, likes to say, our legacy crafts programs. We really want curriculum to take, we want to take an HVAC technician and make them an even better technician if they have the skills in such things as heat pumps. We want to teach an electrician and make them an even better electrician. A better electrician is skilled to work in the solar industries. So that was what we heard from folks, that they really want to infuse sustainability, infuse stewardship, and infuse green job training into those currently existing programs instead of trying to build brand new programs. Go ahead. So we got funding from the Lumina Foundation for the National Green Job Advisory Council, and the whole initiative is about facilitating the processes, technical assistance to support and build an inclusive workforce, coordinating these efforts with employers, training advisors, recruiting, supporting entities, and other program designers. We wanted this to be a project in which we brought community colleges together with employers, together with their community-based organizations, and together with people who are skilled at creating curriculum, and create curriculum that can be dropped into programs without having to create a whole new program. So go ahead. So our deliverables is to engage those employers, to identify those skills gaps by technology oriented sectors. We started with 3 sectors, energy, building sciences, and transportation, that we were to research and distribute curriculum. We went out and did a full analysis of what we could find all across the country in terms of, we could find, it was easy to find credit training programs. We did a survey to find out what people were doing in the non-credit side of the house or workforce training programs. And we said we were going to work with these colleges to integrate those competencies into those currently existing training programs. Again, for example, heat pumps into HVAC, solar into electrical programs. Next slide. We also brought on board a DEI specialist to help us to make sure that the curriculum is equity centered and culturally responsive. Many of you know that oftentimes when you look at those legacy job training programs, you still see all white males doing the programs. And we wanted to make certain that the programs were representative of the community and representative of people that an opportunity. We have developed marketing materials and a marketing guide, and I will show that to you at the end. And the last thing that we're working on is we're developing recommendations and guidelines for currently existing advisory committees. And basically what it's going to be is guidelines how to take an HVAC advisory committee and integrate into that an employer who is utilizing the new technologies, who needs that skilled workforce for those new green technologies, but also employers who are high road employers who have made a commitment to being more responsive to their community and more responsive to finding and recruiting and retaining employees that are not always represented in their current workforce. Next slide. So our leadership team is made up of Dr. Gerard Melanson. He's our project director. Our marketing consultant is Envisions Communications. Our curriculum and DEI consultant is Fife and Associates. John Martini is our lead subject matter expert and curriculum designer. John was a faculty member at University of Arkansas Fort Smith for many years. He was also an HVAC guy who worked in both in the healthcare industry and in universities. And so he's very knowledgeable about the industry, but also very knowledgeable about developing a curriculum. And then we brought in some subject matter experts from the different areas to help us with the project. Go ahead. Again, what we said to the colleges that they were welcome to be part of the project, but they had to bring with them an employer. They had to bring an employer partner to the table. So it wasn't just community college people talking to community college people. It was the employer's voice was also heard in all of this work. So these are the colleges who are participating in transportation. Next slide. This is our construction energy sector participants. And again, as you can see, employers with all of them. And the next slide. And these are HVAC energy sector partners and employers. We went a few weeks ago to Seattle and presented to all of the faculty in all of the community colleges in the Seattle area about this curriculum. And they have volunteered to be the first to test these new modules in their currently existing electrical and HVAC programs. Next slide, please. So why the modules? Well, we really wanted to future-proof those occupations. We want to make sure that those folks that are electricians or HVAC technicians or auto mechanics or truck mechanics are prepared to be good employees as we emerge into a green economy. This was why the modules. Again, colleges didn't want to develop new programs. They wanted to be able to put that curriculum into currently existing programs. We designed them so that they could go in quickly. So it wasn't like, for many of you you've worked with community colleges and you said, oh my God, it takes forever. It's got to go through the curriculum committee and then it's got to go through state approval. We designed these so that they didn't have to go through those processes. They could be just dropped right in and adopted faster than the currently existing projects. And they can be used in credit training programs as well as non-credit training programs and as well as apprenticeship programs. So again, it fits in quickly and easily, and faculty are able to move quickly and start to prepare their learners for the emerging green economies. Next slide. How we chose the modules was basically our subject matter experts took everybody through a help wanted exercise. They said, what would you, if you wanted the ideal technician to be working for your company or to be working in the field, what would be the skills that this help wanted that this technician would have? They worked with the faculty to drill down and look at what was currently existing in their curriculum. And they went out, they looked to see what was open source, what was available from the Department of Energy, what was available from IREC, what was available from other organizations. And they pulled it all together. And then they sat down with the faculty to start to develop these curriculum modules. Next slide. So they also went through a DACUM process. If any of you have worked with your community college, you know it's called Design a Curriculum. Again, they took all of this information together. They took all of this information working in partnerships with the faculty and their industry partners to then go through the process of designing these modules. Next slide. We also did an equity review, and I think this is really one of the most interesting pieces of all of this, and this is something that will be available to share. Our subject matter experts created 2 tools that the faculty could use and that other reviewers could use. And the first tool is a content review to look at what extent does the content meet the needs of diverse populations, is considered equitable and inclusive. And then the next tool is a pedagogy tool. And it looks at what extent the presentation and delivery methods meet the needs of diverse populations. So this tool goes to the faculty and the designers, and they individually can look at this tool and they can look at the new modules and say yes and no in terms of content or in presentation. So next slide. So it's designed as a rubric. It gets points for looking at the curriculum with a bunch of different questions to look at. It's not exhaustive, but it is useful in helping the faculty guide the faculty and giving them the chance for themselves to do a self-reflection while looking at the curriculum. And it's based on universal design for teaching and learning. Next slide. So this is just a quick look at what the rubric looks like. Again, this is available and will be available. And again, you see one column: to what extent does the content meet the needs of the learners? And then, is it exemplary, is it fair, or is it in progress? And again, this gives the faculty the opportunity to look at the curriculum. It also then gives the curriculum designers the chance to look at the curriculum and say, is this equitable? Is it inclusive? Next slide. We then ask the faculty to go back and look at the modules and start to think about how would they organize the lecture? What would be the topics, the subtopics, questions they would ask, examples and illustrations and applications that they would use. Go ahead to the next slide. And they then go down the process of starting to organize the components for the lecture. They write potential test questions, they write learning objectives that they think should be added. They think about the feedback. So they keep going through this iterative process of looking at the curriculum over and over again, as well as developing these so that they can be easily shared with others, again, to just drop it in and not have to recreate the wheel. Next slide, please. So we're in the second phase of the project. The first phase, they did a module on duct leakage testing, on panel assessment for gas to electrical heat pumps. In the second phase, you can see cold climate heat sizing, proper sizing HVAC, energy audits, and solar sizing. And then in the next slide, we're in phase 3, and this is where we're starting to look at transportation. What kind of curriculum do we need for the electrification, not just of cars, but of trucks, farm equipment, trains, buses, etc. So they will be looking soon at phase 3 and electrification of transportation. Next slide, please. We did the draft. The marketing toolkit is done, and I'm going to show you because I think it aligns very nicely with what Rich was just talking about in terms of how they've gone about to recruit students. We have another employer stakeholder meeting coming up. We're bringing together the advocates, the community-based organizations, to go through all of this, the curriculum as well as the toolbook in August. And then our hope is to have the advisory committee handbook ready by the end of October to help these colleges start to recruit green employers into those legacy programs, but also high road employers who are really interested in working with their community. Next slide. Okay, so can I share my screen so I can show folks? Let me do a share screen. And let me pull it up. I'm going to share the screen here. I think that's the right share. Are you seeing the, what are you seeing? Nope, shared the wrong screen. I have 2 screens. Stop sharing. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's share that screen. So this is what the marketing toolkit looks like that we've developed: advancing equity strategies to recruit more Black, Brown, and Indigenous people of color and women to the skilled crafts training, trades, crafts, and STEM training. It's currently on our website. I will drop that link into the chat. But I will tell you, I'm really proud of this. It's very comprehensive. When we worked with Envisions, she did a lot of research as to what folk of color particularly are saying around things like social media, marketing, where they go to learn about job training programs, how they go to learn about job training programs. It also talks a lot about, again, about the type of recruiting materials that you use and how they look and how they're presented and how they do a better reach out to communities. So it's I think it's a very comprehensive toolkit, and it's a toolkit that can be used by programs as well as can be used by marketing folks at community colleges, but also part of probably in apprenticeship programs and other individuals, other organizations as well. So I'll drop the link to that in the chat room so you can get a copy of it. But again, I think I'm really proud of this because I do think it really does take a good look at green jobs training programs and marketing strategies to improve the diversity of the folks in those programs. So with that, I'll turn it back to Cynthia and Janelle.
And I'm actually going to jump in. Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen Brown with IREX communications team, and I'm going to help facilitate the final batch of questions that we have. Just a couple of things that I'll note. We're running slightly behind. We had a few poll questions we were planning to ask you, but we are going to ask those in a follow-up email when we send around all the slides from the presentation. So just flagging that, we would really appreciate your input on those questions. So I'm going to start off with a question for Darlene. Susan asks, are these OER based? And I'm not familiar with that term. So if you know it, Darlene, and can define as you respond, that would be great.
Yes, they are. Thanks for asking that question. And I forgot to mention that all the curriculum modules will be available at the Skills Common website. And they will also be available on the Seed Setter website and the National Green Jobs Advisory Council website. Once they have gone through the final review, we will start posting them. Our goal is to have everything posted on Skills Commons by May 31st. And I can also drop that link into the website, the Skills Commons site for you all to see. So yes, they are open access.
Thanks, Darlene. Our next question, I think, could apply to any of the panelists. Anne asks, do you think focusing on getting more workers into clean energy may change the political climate regarding climate change in more skeptical communities?
I'd love to touch on that one. I think the short answer again is yes, it will. And that's part of the systemic issue we've got. One of the things about the IRA having impact in communities that are often not as welcoming to renewable energy initiatives is also of benefit. And this is the kind of thing that I think is just going to take time for that opposition to cede the floor over time. It's not getting, from what I can see with my boots on the ground, it's not getting better just yet. But hopefully, as the economic impact of this transition is seen for a lot of people who otherwise would not be as welcoming to the transition, hopefully that'll take effect.
Thank you, David. Another question, and this one is for Ridge. They asked, can you discuss the 1-year retention experience?
Yes. Short answer is that because of the matching that is happening on the front end with that community-based connector saying, I think you'd be great at this job, that transaction, recognizing the potential that someone doesn't see themselves, really does propel that job seeker forward, and they stay in the job that they've been matched to. I don't have the number in front of me, but it is a very high 1-year retention rate with our job seekers because they love the job they've been matched to.
Awesome. Thank you, Ridge. And while we're on the topic of recruitment through your program, there's one other related question, which is, do you pay the people who help with recruitment?
No, although that's a question I've wrestled with, but no, the people who recruit on our behalf do it because it's just part of how they accrue social capital. And so they do it because that's the kind of people they are, and they love being the people in the know and having access to job information and being able to connect their friends and neighbors into jobs. So what they get from us is enhanced social capital, but not actual capital.
Thank you, Ridge. We've got another question that is for any of the panelists. How can the federal government, specifically the DOE, best support your organization's efforts? What do you need?
I think I could speak for everyone and say money. That obviously is a joke, but I think we're in an interesting space to see the alignment between energy and labor, and how some of the initiatives that generally you would have seen focused more from the labor side touch the energy space. And it's interesting being a workforce development initiative in solar. I see it a lot where, what we talk about to folks that spend their time sort of in the right side of the political narrative is jobs. What we talk about to folks who spend the left time is renewable energy. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call are familiar with that, with that continuity. But it does seem like there are a lot of opportunities to sort of cross-collateralize those initiatives right now, and hopefully, the IRA and the knock-on effects, and as the directives and guidances grow more refined, we'll see more of that type collegial approach.
I mean, I think David is right that money is, but I think it's not, sometimes it's not just money, it's just this total shift and change in how they support these projects and initiatives. I mean, I really wish that there was more money. There was, if you look at those latest bills, there's not a lot of money. There's the fact that there's no money for job training in there. And so we need to reshift and think about the changes to job training. But one of the things I always tell my folks, my friends, and I'll say my friends at the Department of Labor, is that it's great when you guys put out calls for grants and funds to develop job training programs, but can you give community colleges and our partners and their communities a little bit of time to do some planning and get organized, and not expect them within the first quarter to be able to show you numbers, because those just don't really happen that fast. And so there's often this, folks, colleges are like, well, I really do want to do this job training program, and this money looks fascinating and interesting, but I can't get them, 60 people within 2 months or 3 months. So there has to be this understanding that these, doing this well takes time. And those outcomes are not going to always happen that quickly.
Also, professional development for the instructors. Don't wait for a Perkins round to get the money for the lab, and coordinated regional partnerships. I agree.
Cash and connections is what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you all for those great answers. We are just about at the end of our scheduled time for today. We do have a few more questions that have come in, and IRAC will make sure that those individuals get answers to their questions after the fact. So now I'm going to turn things back over to Janelle Hills, who is going to close out the session for today.
First of all, I want to thank the panelists for all of that valuable information. We really appreciate your participation. Sorry. There we go. We really appreciate your participation in today's webinar. Finally, the LinkedIn page is up. You can visit the link below, which is www.linkedin.com/groups. That's at the bottom of your screen with 128-26218 there. Or you can request to join the Alliance new LinkedIn group by the QR code that's on your screen. I know a lot of people have been waiting for that information. A lot of Alliance members have requested this LinkedIn page. So now's your opportunity to join. Again, I want to thank all of our panelists for your information today, your contact information, answering the question. To learn more and sign up for updates, please visit iracusa.org/programs/the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance with dashes. That's also on your screen. Thank all of our attendees for joining us today, and we look forward to the next Alliance webinar. Have a wonderful day.